All right, we'll reconvene the July 8th meeting of the Board of Supervisors. We are at the public comment section. I'm sorry, thank you, Mrs. Hall. You were supposed to do that, Calvin. We need to come out of closed session first. Is there a motion to come out of closed session?
So moved, Mr. Chairman. Second.
Motion made by Mr. Seeley, seconded by Mr. Taylor to come out of closed session. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed nay. Motion carries unanimously. Mr. Black, do you certify that only those things we went into closed session were discussed?
I so certify.
Mr. Seeley.
Mr. Chairman, I so certify.
Mr. Underwood.
I so certify.
Mr. Akers.
I so certify.
Mr. Taylor.
I so certify.
And I so certify. That ends the closed meeting. Now we're at the public comment section. At this point in time, any citizen of Caroline may address the board to speak on any subject. The only restriction we have is that you cannot speak about public hearings that are being held today. So it has to be something different than the public hearings that are being held today. If you want to speak about one of the public hearings that are being held today, you will be given that opportunity during that particular public hearing. And as usual, our speakers are limited to 3 minutes. So if there's anyone who would like to address the board under public comments, please feel free to do so. And as you come forward, would you just state your name and your voting district if that applies? Feel free to all come down forward if you'd like to. Yes, sir. Good to see you again.
My name is Jack Creasy. I live in Landor. I hope I'm in the right public comment
You
sector.
are, Mr. Creasy. If you're going to talk about too good to throw away things, you are.
Yes. You may be a little tired of seeing me, and I hope you can get rid of me soon. Okay.
We're not tired of seeing you.
Oh, well,
Go right ahead.
Thank you. Well, I'm not tired of you. I'm very happy with the supervisors that we have here and the system we have. Okay. I want to express my thanks to the board of Supervisors for considering my appeal about the ruling in the Lady Smith Recycling Convenience Center. I especially want to thank Jeff Black, George Cully, Alan Parton, and Joyce Sheville for taking the time from their busy schedules to meet me last Thursday at the county administration's office to try to work out a compromise that would serve the county's desire to make as much money as possible from the sale of scrap metal while giving private citizens the widest possible freedom to utilize discarded items that they find useful and reusable and useful in their personal and private lives. The problem seems to center on how to allow this freedom to private citizens without opening the floodgate for commercial scavengers to take gross quantities of scrap metal from the center for sale to smelters and others, which is supposed to be the prerogative of the county. I understand that the board plans to take up this issue at their meeting tonight in hopes of resolving it. I'm sure this will be difficult. At our Thursday meeting, every suggestion to amend the present system seemed to lead to more problems. I'm not sure in my own mind how the meeting concluded. It seemed, I think, to leave open the possibility of designating one day a week when the public would be allowed to remove items for their own personal use. This seemed like a major county compromise to me, and one that I could and should agree with in the spirit, at least, of mutual compromise. I'm still willing to accept this personally, but with one major reservation. I don't think this will work. I think it will lead to even more confusion about whether private citizens will be allowed to take things, on which day, under what circumstances, and when they will not. This adds to the confusion and mixed messages that I feel may defeat the whole spirit of compromise. I worry that such a plan would turn out to be so unworkable that the whole idea of compromise would be discredited and rejected. I'm afraid my 3 minutes will soon be up, so I will stop now with the plea that the board will postpone the deliberations and decisions at least one more meeting. I, for one, would like to gather and summarize my thoughts on the matter for a more formal presentation to the entire board. Right now, they are scattered among letters. My thoughts are scattered among letters to Tony Spencer, Jeff Black, George Coley, Alan Parton, and an unsent letter to the Caroline Progress. I'll give copies of this appeal to Mr. Parton, who is not here, but you do have a representative, fine. with the hope that he will distribute these comments, and they will be read and considered. I will include some thoughts of my own about how compromises might be workable, and if a decision is made tonight, I hope they will be considered. So if I may leave this with him.
You may leave that with him. Thank you very much, sir.
I hope you gentlemen will take the time. I know you're very busy, but I hope you will have time to look them over and consider whether to decide tonight or at some other time.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Ladies, if you would like, when the next speaker is going to be at the podium, if you'd like, you can have a seat right in the front. You don't have to just stand there. I just want you to know chivalry's not dead. It's just sleeping hard, but it's not dead. Thank you, ma'am. Okay, whoever's going to speak first can come to the podium, and the other two can have a seat, so you're just not standing there. So you can have a seat in the front, wherever.
I'm Eddie Terrell. And to the Board of Supervisors, we are here tonight because we need some help in Don with those houses that was built and the water. We can't drink the water. We can't wash in the water. The water just smelled like rotten eggs. And the house was not finished. So I'm asking, is there anything that you all can do for us?
Ms. Terrell, the public comment is you basically tell us what you want, and then we'll try to figure out something afterwards. We don't usually have a question and answer or discussion in public comment. But if your concern is the water, we will discuss that as soon as we finish the entire public comment section.
Okay. It's the water and the houses are not finished.
Okay. Thank you, ma'am.
Thanks.
My name is Cindy Sale. I'm in the Mattaponi District. Mr. Thomas and members of the Board of Supervisors, I'm here on behalf of the alumni of the Bowling Green Senior High School, and we'd like to request the permission to put up a memorial of some type commemorating Bowling Green Senior High. The Union High School building was home to Bowling Green Senior High from 1969 to 1977, and there were 8 senior classes that graduated from the school. Unfortunately, there is no mention of Bowling Green Senior High in or around the building. We feel strongly that those of us that attended and graduated from Bowling Green Senior High should also be remembered. Upon your approval, the alumni will proceed to raise the funds for a memorial and work on a design that is not detrimental to the building. Our objective is not to destroy that exists, but to include another phase of the building's history. Since we are only in the idea stage at this point, we would also like to request any guidelines that are specific as to what is not permitted. When we get a more detailed design as to what we would like to do, we will be glad to show them to the board, but do not feel that we should proceed without coming to you first. But we'd like to have Bowling Green Senior High a part of this building as well. So, thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Sale. And the same thing for you is once we finish them all, we'll discuss a little bit.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who would like to speak as part of public comment? Is there anyone else who would like to speak as part of public comment? Is there anyone else who would like to speak? Hearing none, we'll declare the public comment section to be closed. Mr. Cully, we are going to discuss solid waste as part of our agenda, number 8 on our agenda. We'll take Mr. Creasy's comments into effect then, I guess. Mr. Underwood, you talked before about the water in the houses in Dawn.
Right.
I think you were going to work with Mr. Whiteman.
Right. Mr. Whiteman went to each home and made a list, and I think what needs to be done now is, I just talked to Mr. Cully about the book that was amassed by Mr. Whiteman, and I think I need to have another meeting to discuss what was completed at the time, as well as what are some of the issues that still remain. So hopefully, I've asked Ms. Hall to set up a meeting so we can have a meeting to discuss whatever remaining issues there are. I think, again, it was the Quinn Rivers project is what we're talking about. The issue is, again, the quality of material used to build those homes. Although we recognize that it was within the code when it was built, certainly we have concern that the materials are substandard, causing major issues for the homeowner.
Thank you, Mr. Underwood.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
And Ms. Sale left? I guess you did. Okay. I guess we need to know a little bit more about the monument, marker, plaque, or whatever they want to do to say, go ahead. I don't have a problem with them going ahead. I just think we need to see a little bit more about what it is. So I've corresponded with Mrs. Sale via email, and I'll just tell her that we need to see a little bit more, but if they want to start raising money and let us know what their idea is, we'd be happy to look at it. Okay. That brings us to public hearings. We have 4 public hearings. The first public hearing, Mr. Fincham, will be Special Exception 01-2013, Beverly Run, LLC owner, Veritas Adolescent Services applicant. Mr. Fincham.
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, your first public hearing tonight, SPEX 01-2013, Beverly Run LLC owner, Veritas Adolescent Services applicant. They're requesting a special exception permit in accordance with Article 17, Section 13, and Article 4, Section 5.33 of the Caroline County Zoning Ordinance on a portion of tax map 76A-19, consisting of 134 acres. The subject property is located at 20,500 Remuda Lane in the Bowling Green Boating District. The proposed use is a boarding school. The 2013 Comprehensive Plan designates this area as being located within the Sparta Agricultural Preserve area and designated for agricultural preservation with a density of 1 dwelling unit per 25 acres of land. The applicant is requesting a special exception for a private boarding school on a property that was formerly Remuda Ranch, located off a passing road. The special exception request is for 134 of 346 acre parcel. The area would include a school, residential buildings, extracurricular activity areas. The school would be a fully accredited, licensed, non-denominational Christian therapeutic high school. The applicant is seeking an additional enrollment of 88 students and 24 staff members. I would note that the occupancy load will be based, issued by the building official, will be based upon the plan that is submitted in accordance with the building code. So those numbers may or may not change. A security plan has been included with the application, which includes 140 cameras, card readers on all doors, a full-time security director who will be enrolled in the school. Students enrolled in the school are nonviolent and will not be court-ordered or referred. The specifics of the student admissions is included in the application packet, which you have as part of your packet tonight. Article 17, Section 13 of the zoning ordinance requires special exceptions to meet a number of standards. Those standards and the staff response to those standards are included in your staff report. Article 17, Section 8, subparagraph N, specifies the development standards that the Board of Supervisors previously adopted related to private schools. Again, those standards are included in the staff report as well as the staff discussion related to those standards. The Planning Commission first considered this application as June 5, 2013 work session. An advanced copy of the application was provided to the Planning Commission in advance of the public hearing to afford them the opportunity to review, recognizing that there were changes from the previous application that had been before them. Much of the discussion centered on the security plan and comments by the Sheriff's Office, which were addressed and added to the conditions. The Planning Commission did hold a public hearing at its June 19th meeting and forwarded this application with a recommendation of approval to the Board of Supervisors, subject to the 6 standards included in the application package. I would note that the general standards that the board previously adopted for boarding schools are also requirements by code. So they have not been included by reference in the special exception conditions, since they have to comply with those standards at all times. Detailed discussion of the Planning Commission meeting and those minutes are included in the packet for the board's review. And with that, I'll answer any questions that the board may have.
Thank you, Mr. Fincham. Before we start the public hearing, board members have any questions of Mr. Fincham at this time? None? Thank you, Mr. Fincham. I'm going to open the public hearing. Mr. Payne, as is our tradition, we'll allow the applicant the first statement. If you'll give me a second to formally say the public hearing is now opened regarding Special Exception 01-2013. And if you would, sir, just state your name, not that we don't know it.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and other members of the Planning Commission and staff. My name is Charlie Payne, the law firm Herschel Fleischer, and I represent the applicant. Also with me this evening is the owner of the applicant, Mr. Paul Branning. We also have Mr. Gary Foss, president and founder of Fredericksburg Christian School, who's been an advisor on this project. We also have Mr. Rick Yost, who's the superintendent of Fredericksburg Christian School, who has also been a consultant and advisor on this project. We also have Mr. Keith Ferguson, who will be the principal of ALA, is also an instructor at Fredericksburg Christian School in the Department of Justice. We also have Mr. Chris Alberta, who's our security advisor, who has a 38-year veteran of Henrico Police Department. And we have Mr. Mark King from Bowman Consulting and Mr. Curry Roberts from HF Consulting. So we have all the folks who assisted us with this application here this evening if there are questions that I cannot answer. As Mr. Fincham stated, the applicant is requesting a boarding school under Article 4, Section 533 of the Code. No need to go into any details as to those elements. His staff has covered those, as well as a comprehensive plan analysis. So what I wanted to do is go into some of the key issues in regards to the application that I assume you guys may have questions about. Obviously, the location of the site is at the old Remuda Ranch location. Remuda Ranch, as you are all aware, invested quite a few $1 million into that facility. It's a top-notch scale facility. The plan for us is to utilize the current buildings and other improvements out there, as well as add some additional housing for staff and for the students, and some ball fields. There's some athletic fields that are planned, football, baseball, and soccer, which is, I apologize, Mr. Chairman, that this GDP is so far away from you, but the GDP, and I assume you have it in your packets, includes the current existing and the proposed improvements. Also, Mr. Fincham stated who our students are going to be, and I think that's very important from the beginning because as this last year came around, I think the applicant got off on the wrong foot in describing clearly what the programs and the students are. These students are not violent, they're not court ordered, they're not juvenile delinquents. They're basically rebellious high school kids who have gotten off the right path, who need some discipline adjustment through Christian principles, and at the same time to get them back on the academic path that they have knocked themselves off of. The focus at the school is therapeutic, to help build these kids into good citizens, and obviously that is just not teachers and program directors, it's also parents. So this is a full circle of development for these young students. And as we know, our youth are our future, and ensuring that these students are contributing citizens are key. Caroline County also provides a unique opportunity to bring these kids to a somewhat secluded rural area in this part of the county and get them away from undue and wrong influences so that we can rebuild them and either graduate them from the program where they get their high school degree, or get them through the program to go back into their school system. The applicant has been in existence for about 13 years and currently operating out of St. George, Utah. The current owner, Mr. Paul Branding, has owned the business for the past 2 years. The key, obviously, other than the wonderful rural environment that's here in Caroline County, is its proximity on the East Coast. Many of the students' families are from the East Coast, and this is a lot more convenient for the families as well to be with their children, and as well Mr. Branning's business is on the East Coast. From an operational and ownership perspective, it's a lot more efficient to be here. Caroline County is a wonderful county. Its proximity off of I-95 makes it ideal, as for any other business coming to Caroline County. ALA will require to get accreditation. It has currently 2 accreditations, one with the Northwest Accreditation Commission and also with Advanced Ed, which is the umbrella for not only NWAC, but also the Southern Association of Colleges and Schools, which when they move back to this location, if you so approve them, they will obtain that approval. Now, under Virginia law, I'm sure you know, non-public schools aren't required to get accreditation, but since many of these students are going to be coming here to get high school equivalent classes and academic assistance, when they go back to their original school systems, we have to be accredited for that purpose so that when they go back, they can graduate from those school systems. Through this process, we have reached out to our consultants, specifically Mr. Rick Yost from Fredericksburg Christian School, to assist us as superintendent of that school, a private school, a Christian private school. He certainly has been a great service to us in that process, and will continue to do so as we move forward. Admission standards are very similar to any other private school, and we have provided that obviously in our application. We look at obviously several things in addition to academics. You're also looking at student behavioral, health, educational capabilities, and obviously legal criteria. Curriculum for the academic component is just like any other high school, English, math, sciences, etc. We have sort of 2 components to the school. One is the therapeutic component, obviously the Christian school component that will include the therapeutic and counseling services for these students, which they much need, obviously, to be there, and also the academic component. So you have 2 sets of program employees and academic and therapeutic directors. We will also provide, as I stated earlier, an athletic component to this. They will play sports, like, as I stated earlier, football, soccer, baseball, etc., and they will compete against the private schools that are locally in the area, including Fredericksburg Christian School. Parents. One of the interesting discussions I had with the owner of the business were, what sort of not only your analysis for admissions, but what do you look at other than the students and the things that I had, elements that I had stated earlier. Parents are so key to this. Mr. Branding told me, and I thought this was really something I had to write down and repeat to you. We screen, admit, and qualify our students and their parents. Without the parents, we'll be building a bridge to nowhere. So the parents are absolutely essential to this process. Success. ALA has had a fabulous success rate, both in getting students through the programs and graduating them through the programs, and they going back to their original school system, and for those who don't go back to their original school system, graduating. You're looking at about a 90+% success rate. We didn't submit that with our application, but for the record, I thought I would provide this to the board.
I think you emailed that to us, right?
Yes, we did. That's exactly what we had emailed to you. Security. And we all know that security was a significant issue in the last application. We went and we retained Mr. Chris Alberta. Before I get to that, just so you, on the staff component, just so you know, staff to student ratio, or I take that back, student to staff ratio is about 2 to 1. So what you've got is a very concentrated staff focus and oversight of these students, which is extraordinarily important, which does play a role in security. and high level of supervision of these students. For security purposes, we retained Mr. Chris Alberta's 38-year veteran of the Henrico Police Department. I just want to read you his background, just so I was impressed to hear about his background. And he's been extraordinarily professional, and he's worked very closely with your Sheriff's Department. He's currently the commanding officer assigned to Special Operations, Homeland Security Section. Past assignments include SWAT commander for 20 years, incident commander for NASCAR racing events. If he can keep people straight at NASCAR events, I guarantee he can do a great job here at ALA. He's also a commanding officer of the Organized Crime Section, past graduate of FBI National Academy. His resume and his bio is in the application. Very impressive. We asked Mr. Alberta to take a look at the current ALA emission standards, the layout, obviously, of the former Rumina Ranch facilities, the current operations of the Utah site, so we just didn't stay focused here. Also look at what we're doing in Utah. We also obviously talked and discussed the issues with Utah public officials and public safety officials, as well as Caroline County. He looked at the 9/11 call frequency when Rumina Ranch was operating. He also looked at our current security procedures, as I said, in Utah, policies and procedures for similar types of private boarding schools, Woodbury, Forest, Fork Union, questions and comments, obviously, with local law enforcement. Pursuant to his analysis, as we have made part of our application, our security plan, as you heard Mr. Fincham state earlier, we have some 140 cameras and monitoring system to be in place. Most of these monitors, certainly for the individual students, would be at nighttime after bed check. Fobs, if you will, cards that would be required for entry, push bar doors, locked from the outside in, obviously with audio activation for any sort of unauthorized exit. Again, card door, gate readers. The front main gate will be motorized, and we'll have an enhanced exit lane with concrete island dividing them. Employment, have a full-time security director who will provide guidance with the emission screening as well, so he just won't say, I'm going to catch you if you're not doing what you're supposed to. He's going to play a role on the front end as well when these kids are admitted. Also have provided, there will be a requirement for extensive background checks for employees at ALA, which is extraordinarily important, as you can imagine, as we are responsible for young people and their parents, ensuring that their kids will be safe at our facility. We also will be establishing a safety and security manual in conjunction with Caroline County Sheriff's Department. Again, we have been working very close with the Sheriff's Department. We also have an apprehension team protocol for any folks who decide that they don't want to be there. And there's an unauthorized exit. Teenagers are teenagers. I will assure you it is not the norm for these students to leave campus. Just like any other private school, there is an apprehension protocol in place. It is mainly in place for the safety of our students, as well as the community, but mainly for the safety of our students. The other important component, and I wanted to focus on those other components, the academic, the therapeutic, and again, Mr. Keith Ferguson is here, and we have other consultants here who can talk more about the therapeutic programs if you have questions about that, as well as academic. The other important piece of this is the economic development piece. Rumina Ranch, I was fortunate enough to handle that rezoning before Caroline County. That was a significant investment at that time in dollars, construction jobs, vendor procurement at that site. Also, real estate taxes, et cetera, revenue generated for the county. Rumina Ranch left. I know that that had an impact, certainly on the businesses in the community. And I think that's important that this project, which is going to make about an $8 million additional investment into that site, and the economic development impact it's going to have. First, new jobs. About 40 to 50 jobs will derive from this project, but 90+% of those will derive locally. We are not bringing a majority of the employees in Utah here, so we'll be hiring locally. Now, obviously, our focus will be on Caroline County, but we don't want to violate any labor laws, etc. So we'll, obviously, folks who apply will have to be qualified, but it will be a benefit to them to be living in the county. The expected employee positions range from obviously management, supervisory, security, academic, administrative, therapeutic, facility, ground positions, etc. Again, this is a 24-hour, 24/7 boarding school. Kids will obviously be staying overnight and will be eating at the facility as well as benefiting from the programs. The annual payroll is about $1.6 million, so that's a pretty good investment at that location. Not to mention the fact with the $8 million investment, you're going to get new construction, which is going to help obviously general contractors and the subs. I represent many general contractors and subs, and even with the building boom, many of them are still looking and hustling for work. Also, just sort of way of example, I think that current facility appraises at about $6 million today. Obviously, with the new investment, it's going to have a higher assessment. It generates about $50,000 plus in just real estate tax revenue alone for the county. So again, I think a very positive economic development project. As I stated earlier, and I put in our application, the vendors that Remuda Ranch had dealt with in the past, many of those will also benefit from this. And you're looking at about $800,000 plus procurement annually with those vendors. Again, that creates a ripple effect off the site, new jobs, new investment. Also, ALA has an excellent track record with community service. Prior to any sort of graduation or leaving the program, each student is required to have at least 360 hours of community service. I don't know how many high school kids actually go through that process, but that's an excellent asset to your community. Significant time will be dedicated to local community, including churches and charities and nonprofits. In addition, we're not just going to go build a facility and hide. We're going to be part of the community. We're going to be a partner with the community. We're going to continue to reach out to the community. There are issues that come up. We want to know. We want to be the first to know. We want to work with the community in that process. That's the end of my presentation. I'm happy to answer questions. I'm sure you have some questions. And again, I have several experts here who can answer the questions that I can't tackle.
Thank you, Mr. Payne. If you'll have a seat, we'll conduct the rest of the public hearing, and then the board will go back through and ask questions if they have any.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Is there anyone who would like to speak regarding this matter? Is there anyone who would like to speak regarding this matter? Is there anyone who would like to speak regarding this matter? Hearing none, the public hearing is declared closed. Questions on the board? Mr. Taylor? I switched the order.
That's fine. Yeah, just a few questions. First of all, you talked about the jobs that you're going to be, or the people that you're going to be hiring. And you say 40 to 50 jobs. Could you just talk briefly about, what the general requirements are, for those jobs? And you don't have to go into, all the specifics.
Well, yes, sir. Well, many of them will obviously be high management jobs. So you're talking, college degrees plus for some. Executive will have, obviously executive director for the whole facility. You have a security director. You have an academic director. You have a therapeutic program director. Plus, you'll have obviously teachers who will be teaching the courses. Obviously they will have degrees and certifications for that purpose. Then you'll have other folks who will be assisting with the grounds, with the cafeteria components, and with the maintenance components on the facility. So you have a full range of employees at that site.
Okay. And none of those positions have been filled, obviously, at this point.
To my knowledge, only one position has been filled. That's Mr. Ferguson, who's from here, who will be the principal.
Before, and you talked a little bit about security. Security was an issue in the beginning. My understanding is you work with the sheriff's office and feel, and the sheriff obviously is not here, so feels as though that security concern has pretty much been addressed satisfactorily.
I believe so, Mr. Taylor. And if I can correct myself, just stepping back a little bit, Mr. Ferguson is not officially hired by ALA because obviously we have not been approved for anything. But he has been working and consulting with us, and he's visited the Utah site. So I just wanted to make that clear. As to the security issues, absolutely. We listened to the community concerns last year. We listened to the board concerns last year. That was our priority for us. One of our first consultant hires was Mr. Chris Alberta. I read his background to you. I don't think we could have found a better security person for this location. And obviously, we did this ensuring that the Sheriff's Department was comfortable with our plan and our project. And that will continue to evolve with the Sheriff's Office and EMS. So it's just not going to stop here. It's going to continue to evolve as we move forward. And in fact, I believe a condition of our request by the county is that that plan be in place before we even open our doors.
Okay. We talked a little bit too about the percentages of graduates that you have and what happens to them after they graduate. Obviously, nothing is 100%, and we're not looking for that. But could you talk just a little bit, and you did touch on it a little bit in your presentation, but could you talk a little bit more about the graduates and what happens after graduation and the method that you have of tracking the success of your students?
Yes, sir. Mr. Taylor. Couple of things. One, we don't want anyone to be confused that everybody who comes here graduates academically from our facility. It's a two-component. You know, it's programmatic, therapeutic, programmatic, and academic. So many of the students who come in, as you can see from the charts that I handed out, many of the students who come in come through the program successfully, and then they go back to their school system. And many of them thrive afterwards. We continue to monitor them afterwards to make sure that they do transition back into the world, if you will, and back into those influences. So there's a sort of ongoing counseling component to this, if you will, to ensure and working. That's why the parents are so important. That's why they're the bridge, working with them and ensuring that those students are continuing on the appropriate path. So it's just not here. It continues when they leave.
And I just have one other question. One of the concerns that I had personally was to see if there possibly could be some correspondence with our high school, with our school system, if there might be some way by which maybe some of our students might be able to benefit from this particular project.
Yes, sir.
And I don't mean in the sense of staying overnight or, you know, boarding them for extended periods. I don't know that would work. But in the school system, we do have a student sometimes who have some issues. And obviously this school is going to have a number of trained persons who can work with students who have concerns. And I was just wondering if there is any thought given to working in conjunction with the school system here, whereby a student or a group of students might be able to benefit from some of the expertise that's going to be going on within the school.
Yes, Mr. Taylor, I think that's an excellent question. As you know, it's a private school, so obviously it's driven by tuition that helps run and operate the school. But the client is completely committed to becoming part of the community. And my belief is as the school evolves and becomes more and more part and ingrained in the community, the greater, I think, coalition is going to be built with the school system. I know Caroline County has an excellent school system, has excellent teachers, but it has its challenges just like any other school system. So I think there's lots of opportunities for that to happen. Obviously, I think once my client has their feet on the ground and they're moving forward, that's going to be the opportune time to start reaching out and becoming more part of the community and working with the school system. The other important component is in our application, we have taken the position or proffered up, whatever the appropriate term is that a member of Caroline County, a citizen of Caroline County, will be on the board at ALA, which would give yet another link to Caroline County into the school system. And Dr. Bush asked the same question. It was an excellent question, and we assured him that we would reach out to the school system and try to build those coalitions, if you will.
And that's really all the questions that I have right now. I just would end by saying I very much appreciate the manner in which things have been handled this time as opposed to the first time. There were just quite a few citizens the first time who had concerns, and certainly law enforcement and other entities in the community. And we really knew very little about this, and it was just very difficult to make a decision. Personally, myself, I feel that is totally different this time. I think there's been an outpouring of effort to try and come into the community, answer questions, work with citizens in all entities. And I do appreciate that correspondence from your agency. So
Thank you, Mr.
I
Taylor.
thank you for that.
Okay, before we go to Mr. Akers, I just want to make sure the reporters heard Mr. Payne say Caroline had an excellent school system. You heard that, right? You're going to print that, right? Mr. Akers.
You
Mr.
did?
Payne, a couple of questions. Number one, the last time around, the sheriff was here, and he certainly had issues and spoke. I'm assuming, unless the major says differently, I'm assuming then the sheriff's issues and the sheriff's concerns have been addressed.
They've all been addressed and satisfied.
Okay.
Chris Alberta and Mr. Curry have done an excellent job. Sat in with several of the meetings with the sheriff and them included, and it went very well.
Good. I didn't see a letter in here, and I just wanted to make sure
Yes,
that was on record as the sheriff has sort of signed off on what has been transpiring. Secondly, and to follow up on what Mr. Taylor asked about the students and what happens to the students. As I look at these numbers that were given out and emailed to us earlier, I see that in 2008, there were about 22 students that graduated, and it shows that there were 20 students that enrolled in college. Does that mean that out of the 29 that graduated, or the 22 that graduated, that 20 of them went into college, or how does those numbers relate to each other? Because I've noticed that pattern through 2009, 10, 11, and 12, I believe it is.
Right.
That there's only been 1 or 2 students that did not.
Right. Well, you're following the students as they go back to their school system and as they graduate from our program. So the collection, that global world, if you will, is what was in our program for a year. That net number that went to college is a number from that aggregate number that did successfully go to college. And you look at the percentages, it's rather high.
I wish we had them in Carolina.
If you compare it to any school system in the state, it's rather high. And the dropouts, if you think about it, I know there's very few, and we're not going to hide away from the dropouts. But if you think about these kids coming in, are all on the path of dropping out, right? And then they've completely reversed their lives, and you only have just very few who don't make it. That's a wonderful accomplishment.
Right. Now, how many students do you normally have transitioning into the school on a yearly basis? Mr. Branding, do you know that information? Varies. I got it.
Mr. Brennan, can you come forward to the microphone, please? I mean, we can hear you for the most part, but when it's rebroadcast, they might not be able to hear you. Thank you, sir.
You're welcome. There again, that number varies. We've had it as high as, I think, 8 students coming in a month. And then you might have 3 the next month, but you might have 6 graduating. So the numbers fluctuate greatly for whatever reason. Some months, I think mainly coming into September after the summer season, and the kids are going back into the school, and they're starting to have those problems where the kids don't want to go back or whatever's going on. We seem to have more of an influx at that time coming in. Enrollment starts going back up.
And if you get the approval tonight to move forward, you do plan to have the school year in September or whenever the school year starts for ALA to be in 2013. Is that correct? In Caroline?
The way our system works is it's a 12-month program. So if we get a child in December, that child, it doesn't matter. In other words, we run 12 months a year. So this way here, a child can come in at any given time and still stay with the program. our biggest struggle here would be timing. Trying to get to fulfill some of these positions that we have to fulfill for teachers especially is very challenging